We are here for the session of self-care as an ethical mandate, which is very important in our profession as counselors. We have Dr. Kim Nguyen Phin from the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley giving us this presentation. We are able to take questions throughout. I will have the mic. Please let me reach you in time so we can get it on the mic. Okay, just briefly, if you haven't donated for our charity, please go on the app. Kids Join the Fight. The bids close at 3. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I got this one. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah, so howdy y'all, welcome. And the second to last session of our conference. So I appreciate y'all taking the time, sticking it out. I am, as she'd said, a lecturer with the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, right on the border of Mexico. I'm also the coordinator of the Expressive Arts program. So what we do is we incorporate the arts, various art forms, music, dance, theater, I'm missing things, but whatever, various art forms, along with behavioral and mental health care for both the undergraduates and the graduates. I'm also a trauma-informed counselor and a supervisor. So I am a supervising consultant counselor for our university's Office for Advocacy and Violence Prevention. What I would like to do is kind of combine all of these things together here and talk about how important it is to take care of ourselves as we care for others. And also, because we have had a very long conference, I thought that we could also incorporate some of the expressive arts and just enjoy ourselves for a little bit while we're talking about taking care of ourselves as a way of getting out how we might be able to affirm for ourselves what we need to care for us. I'm very, very casual when I'm talking, so please do not hesitate if you have a question, if you have a comment to make, to jump in and interrupt me. I truly do not mind. So you don't need to wait until the end. If there's something that I'm talking about that you'd like me to slow down or explain a little bit further, please, by all means, stop me. So I better make sure I don't hit myself during the presentation and have that loud boom. This is a quote that I really love. It says, "The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet." And to me, that really affirms what we do. You know, all of us, we work with folks who have disabilities. I work with folks also who have experienced traumatic, violent incidences. But we know that even with working with those who have disabilities, this is a population that is more likely to be abused, more likely to undergo some sort of trauma by the time they get to us. So we may very well hear some of their trauma stories and their trauma history. You know, how many of us go home and we don't think about work at all? Like nothing. Yeah, you do, right? And you cannot get rid of it. You go home and sometimes you're thinking, oh, no, that story that I just heard, or did I make the right call? Did I make the right call in how I helped this individual? Or especially when I'm working with a kid, a child, that's really hard to get out of my head sometimes. And I know when I was in the program, my graduate program, our professors told us, my mentor told me, you cannot take it home. You need to leave it there. And then I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't leave it there. I would take it home with me and I would be thinking about it. And there's really nothing wrong with you for doing that, because we're human, we care about people. We are working with them because we have compassion for these individuals. Hopefully, right? We hope that you are here because you have compassion for individuals and you truly want to help them. There is something called the compassion paradox, or the caring paradox, actually, which is pretty much the same thing, is that the more you care about others, the more likely you will be affected by what they go through. And that means the more likely you are going to carry on the weight of it. So for us in the helping profession, it is so much more important for us to take care of ourselves and to ensure that we're doing what we need to in order to continue help others. I'll talk in a few minutes a little bit about compassion fatigue and how that affects us, and also secondary trauma reactions, to really emphasize why it's important for us in this particular profession to do all of this. But we're all rehab professionals working mostly in different capacities. A lot of you all are in vocational rehabilitation. We do so much diverse things, or we have the potential to do all of that. We're advocates, trainers, counselors, we're mentors, we're case managers, all of those things. Yesterday, we were talking to mostly vocational counselors. Are you all mostly vocational counselors? Do you all do some different things? Mostly? Mostly perfect. You're what now? I'm sorry. Oh, howdy, y'all. I love our OT program on our campus. We have some really great professors and students in that program. So that's awesome. You know, one of the misconceptions that I hear from students with going into vocational counseling, occupational therapies or counseling, is that you're only talking about careers or vocations and that's it, period. And that is so further from the truth, so much further from the truth. I know even my first professional job, I worked as a career counselor in the college population. And what I would find on a regular basis is people would come in, students would come in, and they would tell me that they didn't know what they wanted for their major. They didn't know what they wanted to do with their lives or their careers. And it could be so simple for me just to give a battery of assessments, have them do it, make the scoring and saying, oh, well, according to this is what it says you should be getting into. But y'all know that it's much more complicated than that. And we have to consider their life circumstances. Can't tell you how many times I'm working with them, and regardless of whatever the assessments are coming about, there is always something going on. And I'm learning more and more about it, including the more I'm talking to them, the more comfortable they're getting. They're sharing with me why they're struggling with some of their choices and what's going on in their family situations, what's going on in their personal situations, that it's not even just about the career choice. It could be totally tied into even their self-concept, their self-esteem, how they view themselves, what they think they're worthy in life to become. And there were way more than a handful of times that after we worked out their career goal and what their major should be, they said, well, you know, now that I've been talking with you, I feel a little bit more comfortable, and this is what I really came in for. And then that's when they start laying down some extra stuff too. So you end up, and I'm sure you all have experienced this, hearing so much more about them. And it's very much it can be the work that we do involved and complicated, and you hear some great deal of stories, and a lot of mental health issues might be coming out. And so all of this can wear down on us, and we are caring for all of these individuals. Our jobs are very stressful. Depending on what we do, you'll have not just the work with the clients, which can be emotionally involved. I feel like I'm not seeing some folks back here, so if I'm moving back and forth, I'm so sorry. We have a great deal of paperwork as well, and we've got having to deal with administrative responsibilities. If y'all are in private practice, that comes with its own set of issues, payrolling or the overhead costs and so on. If you're working for an agency, it's working under their requirements too, and what they're expecting of you. In the last one that I'm looking about here is, it talks about how it's not even uncommon for case managers, even counselors, to go through their entire day and barely have time for a break at all. Like, you're eating through while you're writing your notes, you are thinking about it, trying to say, do I have time to go to the bathroom even? You know, you're running to go into the restroom in between your clients. There is very little time to de-stress even throughout the day. And sometimes when I'm talking to folks and I'm like, can you take mini breaks? There's little, yeah, maybe. because there's very little time for any of that. And most of the time is catching up. And for some of us, we go home and we're still catching up. And so in that by itself, you're taking your work home. I don't know about y'all, but during the pandemic and we had to work from home, that was the worst. Because it's not like you could drive home and get away from work because you're working from home. So in order to get away from work, you went from your couch to the kitchen. That's basically how you got away. Unless you had a home office while you were there. I had an apartment, so it was literally my couch to the dining table, and that would be back and forth if I'm getting away from work. Anyway, so y'all have heard of compassion fatigue. We've talked about it quite a bit. We kind of hear about it a lot. But so compassion fatigue is what happens when we are tired from caring and we're feeling other people's pains, and what it's composed of is some secondary traumatic stress reactions as well as burnout. Burnout is like you're driving to your job and you're just thinking, I do not want to get there. I would like to not work. That might be a sign that you are burnt out because you are tired. It's not like you don't want your job, but you are tired, you're exhausted from that job, you don't feel it anymore. And it's coupled with the secondary traumatic stress because we're feeling this trauma that we're hearing from some of our clients. So if you're hearing their trauma over and over and over again, that is traumatic. Just like we say, if somebody has been, say, assaulted or they've been in combat or had any other traumatic experience, just talking about it and getting them to talk about it over and over and over again is traumatic. And the more often they talk about it, the more often they relive it, the more likely they might have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, or at least acute stress disorder. And so we can experience that as well, not by directly experiencing the trauma, but by hearing about the trauma over and over again. So all of this coupled together can cause this compassion fatigue. We are very likely to step out of our professions, maybe leave our professions if we're burnt out and we're feeling the compassion fatigue and we're not taking care of ourselves. And what we don't want is for really good providers and counselors and OT professionals to leave our jobs because of this stuff, because it is preventable and we're able to care for ourselves. So again, because of the caring paradox, the more we care, the less likely we're going to be experiencing this, the more reason we need to do that. Because, I mean, hopefully, again, we are here because we want to help others. So I'm going to skip through some of these slides because it's redundant from what I'm already saying. And the slides are already posted on the conference site, so you're totally able to see all of them should you want to. So y'all don't need me to tell you all of this stuff about what the symptoms. Are you seeing yourself in this? Is that what it is? Yeah, no. So, if you see some of this stuff in yourself, you might have some symptoms of compassion fatigue. It is okay. It is okay. There's help available. That's why we're here. We're all talking about that today. Some additional symptoms. Do you see some more of yourself in there? Difficulty sleeping, racing thoughts. You know, the thing with experiencing compassion fatigue, feeling overloaded with stress and work, and also for our clients too, is so many folks utilize substances to cope. When I've given self-care presentations before for a variety of different groups, and I ask, what do you do to cope with your stress? Yes. The first thing that I normally hear, unless it's a group of students who are afraid of saying it because they're in my class, is drink. That's the first thing that they say across the board. And it's effective perhaps on the short term. It works immediately on the short term, but we call it a maladaptive coping mechanism for a reason, because it really doesn't help all that much, and it can cause additional problems. So we've got to incorporate some other things in there. I'm not a teetotaler, though. I believe in all things in moderation, if you can handle that. But if that's your go-to, it could be an issue, and it could cause definitely additional problems. But anyway, some other reactions that might be concerning is, especially you're getting more pronounced symptoms of depression, you're really struggling yourself, you start having thoughts, morbid ruminations, wishing that you were dead, suicidal thoughts, and having a much more difficult time dealing with all of those emotions. So additional ones, I've already talked to you all about that, working with those who have disabilities. We know that there is a much more likelihood of them to experience have traumatic experiences, and thus it can complicate the work that we do. Plus, we also have to keep in mind the intersectionality of identities. If we're working with those who, some minority groups, sexual minorities, for example, veterans, we might also be working with a population who is very likely to have also traumatic experiences. That would definitely add to the heaviness of their issues, but and also the likelihood that we ourselves are going to be exposed to their traumatic reactions and experience secondary trauma. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is a little bit of neurology as we're going through this and how important this is. And the reason why I go over this is because I find, oh, you're welcome to come in if you wanted to have a seat. Oh, you don't have to now that I'm pointing it out. I'm sorry. The reason why I point this out is because when I'm talking to my clients who've had a really rough time and they're struggling themselves, what is one thing that I hear all of the time from them when they're talking about their symptoms and how much they struggle and they can't get over some things or past some things, as they say, is they feel that they're crazy. And I hear that all the time. Well, you must think that I'm crazy. And I'm thinking, no, what you are experiencing are some very normal reactions to some abnormal set of circumstances. That's it. And so I want to talk a little bit about their trauma reactions, but it's the same for us when we are experiencing secondary traumatic reactions because of the work that we're doing with them. We are getting the same sort of things. So what happens to us when we're experiencing any sort of stress is that our brains go into the survival mode mechanism, and it starts reacting in such a way to keep us safe. It goes back to the Neanderthal days. It doesn't, when we're fighting saber-toothed tigers for our meals, I don't even know if we lived during that time period. I have no idea if humans did or not, but let's just say we did. And our brains now are reacting the similar ways, but it has no idea whether or not the stress is due to something actually physically threatening or not. It doesn't register that. So even if you're feeling stressed and there's a surge of panic because, say, you're not working for yourself and the boss comes into the room and you're like stressed out because you, I don't know, had a deadline or something, that may be a very similar reaction to what can initially be a reaction that you get when you see somebody coming into a room who you might be judging as potentially physically dangerous. So what happens then when you feel under stress is that your brain releases stress hormones like cortisol, norepinephrine, and these hormones are messengers in your brain that tells your different body parts what it is that you need to do. So what it does is it tells your different parts of your body, okay, certain parts of your brain need to stop functioning because it is not important anymore. So that includes the parts of your brain for higher cognitive functioning, for decision-making skills, emotion reasoning, emotion regulation, all the good parts in your brain that tells you how you're supposed to react. And what it also does is it heightens the part of your brain like your amygdala, that's your fear center of your brain, so that you can react with much more panic and fear. Makes sense? Yes, that's exactly what happens. And so the other part is, I mentioned the thalamus, which is right there in the middle part of your brain, that's like the messenger part of your brain. How I liken that to is sort of like the mail center, the post office of your brain. It gets a message and it sends it to the correct part of the brain for processing. It starts getting overwhelmed, and so it begins to shut down. So I think sometimes that's why when we're really panicked and we're in an emotional state, we don't get certain messages of how we should be reacting. And I tell folks, like, that might be why you have a heightened stress reaction than if you're upset. You may vomit some words out to somebody that you don't quite mean. Not that it's an excuse. So you shouldn't say, well, it's a stress reaction. That's why I vomited out those words that I didn't exactly mean. But that may be a part of it. After the stressor goes away, everything should go back to normal. Like the hormone levels go back to normal, the adrenaline gets dumped, everything should be fine. However, what happens is, under repeated exposure, things do not go back to normal. So what you end up getting is that the brain thinks, I don't know when the next time I'm going to get this stressor come up. I don't know when the next time there's going to be a threat. So it stops shutting it down. It will stay at a heightened stress reaction. We see that with children who have been abused repeatedly. We've seen that with veterans who have been in the war theater, that they come back, like for example, with the veterans, they come back and they're safer here. We suspect they're safer here, but they're still on heightened alert. And it's very difficult for them to feel relaxed. Children as well, as I had mentioned. The thing with kids too is that trauma really does affect the brain. Even for adults, it affects the brain, but we see it affecting the brain development. So down what you see here, we talk about how those who have PTSD, how it affects them is they have a smaller hippocampus ratio, anterior cingulate ratio, volumes. We have the amygdala is much more active. That's the fear center of our brain than in another brain. You think about it, the parts of the brain for rational thought, memory, long-term memory included, being able to focus, those parts of the brains with those kids are smaller and they're not functioning quite as well. How do you expect them to sit in a class and really focus on what's going on, or even sit in a session with you all and be able to focus? Even teenagers who are getting ready to graduate, or college kids, we can't really expect them to sit and focus for long periods of time, or much less recall information and be able to do well on exams. How we also have seen is that their performance on IQ exams, yesterday, Dr. Sharma, you talked about IQ exams, their performance have consistently been lower. Do we think that they have a lower IQ? Absolutely not. I don't believe that at all. I think that the IQ tests are not reflecting what's going on with them, that it doesn't mean that they're any less intelligent, but you cannot expect them to sit through a traditional test and recall the same sorts of information with ease that another individual would be able to do so. So we've got to be really cautious about what our clients are going through and the exams that we're giving them, how their brain is affected and how they may end up performing on those particular assessments. So the good news is that our brains are very plastic, so they're changeable. And we can work on changing their brains. So that's a really good thing. That's left up to that. And move a little bit forward beyond that. How we do that is a lot of the self-care stuff. So I do a whole lot of emotion regulation training, mindfulness training, giving them small moments where they can relax themselves just a little bit. And it starts to train the brain into thinking maybe we're a little bit more relaxed than we think that we are. If you are so heightened and tense and you're constantly on alert, your brain gets used to this as the normal. And it will start reacting as if this is the normal. So instead of like your baseline, I don't know if it's going to make any sense, but if like your baseline is like this, and we tend to go up and down in moods, like kind of low, getting heightened with our stress, up and down, that's normal throughout a day. We start feeling really tense and we start thinking that, you know, even going into work is going to be stressful, and we're hearing all of this trauma and we're thinking about it all the time. Our baseline tends to go up a little bit more because that's what we're feeling and that's what we're thinking. And so this starts feeling like the new normal. Being tense, being stressed is the new normal. So if you're starting to feel really tensed all the time, that's especially a bigger clue that you need to do some things for yourself to try to get it back down a little bit. So that's why if your tension level is already super, super high, and you might see this with your clients who have a trauma history, any little thing that might happen may push them really high over the edge. They may end up with a panic attack. They may freeze and have difficulty figuring out what to do or how to handle that particular issue or stressor that had come up. But that's because they're reacting in such a way that they're already way up here in their tension level, and any little bit is going to push it up a little bit higher, which is a lot higher. So for us, if we're experiencing that and that one little stressor, it's not going to knock us over the edge in that threshold. But if we're already way up there, then yes, it very much might. So in order to bring it back down, even just little moments where you give yourself some peace, some quiet, or you remind yourself or lie to yourself and tell you everything's good, serenity now, even lying to yourselves, and you tell yourself repeatedly over and over and over again, your brain does start to believe it. It's stupid. It's not that smart. So it's going to start believing it. And you are going to convince yourself at some point that you're going to be a little bit more relaxed, and you can start bringing it back down. That's why, as ridiculous as it sounds, even a 5-minute breather break, or a little bit of just even while you're walking from here to the restroom, and you're taking slow, deep breaths, 5 seconds to inhale, pause, 5 seconds to exhale while you're walking. You're not even taking time out of the day. You still have to go to the bathroom. So that by itself is a little bit of a moment where you're starting to train your brain to slow it down just a little bit. Each of those moments help. It could very well help you go to the bathroom just a little bit easier. Yes, it totally could. If you're so stressed, you might not want to. Yes, absolutely. So I want to point out why this is an ethical mandate. We know our CRC codes, I'm going to mention some of them, say that this is so important. We have to monitor our effectiveness. It's important for us as rehab professionals to gauge ourselves. How effective are we? We also have to gauge our colleagues' effectiveness too. If they're impaired, we need to ensure that they're not harming people, because we're not going to help folks as well if we're impaired. So we've got to monitor ourselves. We have to ensure that we are functionally competent. If we are overloaded with our stress and we're feeling overwhelmed, we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we possibly help others? Right? I know plenty of folks who come into my offices and they tell me, you know, they're doing all of these stuffs for other people, their kids, their family, the work. Some of them come in, they're professionals as well in our field, and they're doing all of these things. And I'm like, well, what are you doing for you? And they can't even fathom that idea about what am I doing for anybody else, but I can't, because that would be selfish. That's how it feels like. It would be selfish to do something for just myself and take time away, or I don't want to take time away. I would rather give that time and make sure I have that, I don't know, with the kids or with the family. but they're not really doing what they want to do either. There's nothing selfish about being selfish, really. If you're taking care of yourself, I think ultimately you end up being a better provider, a better healthcare provider also. You have to take care of yourself in order to help other people. This is what I think of ourselves as. We're like rechargeable batteries. And so every time you are helping somebody else, don't you give a little piece of you? You're giving some of yourself, your energy, your focus. Some of y'all know what I mean. If after a session you might feel a little bit of energy drain. Some of y'all do, yes. And so we start depleting some of our energy helping others. And if you don't take care of yourself to replenish the energy in your own battery, you're going to end up on empty. And if you have an empty battery trying to work a remote, do you know what you end up doing? Is like you're pushing it and you're pushing it and you're trying to get the television to work or the next slide to go. And it's not working quite as well as it's supposed to. Or you put it in a toy, your kid's toy, and it's not going to work as well as it's going to. It may still be functioning, but slowly, and definitely not quite as fun. So you have to, even if you take a little bit of time out of your day to put yourself back in that recharger, whatever is going to work for you. You can recharge your own batteries, and that makes you a better provider. It makes you a better friend and family member. It makes you just feel overall better about you. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment that I've noticed. I don't know how loud I am or how loud
You
I'm
are
not.
good now.
Okay, so I've noticed that there's a negative connotation associated with self-care, that it's superfluous, that it's self-indulgent. And I think it's really important that we start moving away from self-care when we're talking about long-term self-maintenance. Because in the end, we're talking about making sure that we can still show up to our job every day, no matter what the stresses of the job are. And I think self-care makes it seem, at least the way socially we've been brought to believe, that self-care is purely self-indulgent,
Yes.
when self-care could be something as simple as, I don't have the energy to cook tonight, but if I don't eat tonight, then I'm going to miss work in the morning because I won't be able to help my clients. And if I do this small thing that is in my mind indulgent, but I know that it's what I need for the next step, then that's really self-maintenance. And I think that's a really important shift that we're slowly starting to see. And
I love the way that you put that with self-maintenance. It's so true. And we should, as a whole in the profession, really see the value of it. I learned very recently in another presentation by Dr. Sharma that the social work profession has a huge jump in how they feel about the importance of self-care. And I really hope that the CRC and the LPC Code of Ethics follow suit, that they actually spell out self-care within their code of ethics as an ethical mandate. So I think if we take anything from that's an emphasis of how important it is to care for us so that we can go to our jobs and do the kind of work that we need to do and still feel like whole individuals. We shouldn't die for our jobs and be that stressed out that we're not able to give anymore. Why did we go into the profession in the first place? Because we wanted to help people. That's why we're there, I hope, please. We're there for that. What's that? Well, I'm sorry? Right. They might give you a treat, like an ice cream cone, a cake, something. Yes. We could do it. Even listening to somebody, just listening to somebody can be very, very helpful. But I think it's just so important that we do take care of us. There's another one that I think is important, is contingency planning as well. We should be very cognizant or aware of who might help us take care of our clients and our case notes, should we not be able to continue to do the work that we're doing with our clients. And it could be just if we decide to take a vacation for ourselves because we really need a vacation and we haven't taken one in 5 years. Or it could be that we are tired. We decided that we're going to take a step away, retire. Who else might be able to take care of our stuff? Sometimes we can't even take a week break because we're so worried about who's going to see our clients, and we've got to recognize that somebody will take care of them. So I feel like if we have an idea in our heads, yeah, you know, this is what's going to happen should I not be there in the next week or the next 2 weeks, or I decide to retire, it's okay. I know who's going to help me take care of these individuals and continue with the work that I'm doing. So I have a couple of quick ethical dilemmas I will talk about. But what I think what we'll do first is let us start an activity and we'll talk while you are continuing to do your art stuff. Because as some of you might have walked in just a little bit late, I explained one of the things that I do is I work with the expressive arts on campus. So we incorporate the arts with healthcare and mental health care. If you don't want to do the art stuff, you do not have to. It's all individual based. You can just sit and pretend. Or it might be something that you can just write the steps down for. And if you feel like you enjoy this activity, you can see it possibly working for one of your clients. You're welcome to use this activity yourselves. Totally up to you. We might have to share some of the supplies, but well, at least we might have to share a little bit of the markers. But if you wanted to use the glue sticks, which you don't necessarily have to use the glue sticks, but if you want to use the glue sticks, I have a few here. Okay, just take this. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, though. No, thank you. Oh, well, if thank you. Okay. So what we are going to do in this activity is we are going to affirm for ourselves what it is that we need in order to care for ourselves and to have a visual reminder for this. So any of y'all garden? Do y'all any do gardening? Only 2 people that come, 3. Oh, yay. Okay. I love gardening. Because you know when you get your hands in the dirt, it just feels kind of good. Just get your hands in there with gloves too. You can get your hands in gloves with dirt, but it just kind of feels good. And you it's nice to grow something and to see the end result, right? It is nice. Right now, though, what I'm growing is cacti. That's basically what I'm growing because I can't screw that up. You plastic cacti, plastic. So we are going to make our own seed packets. If you are familiar with seed packets, the front is a picture of the flower or the plant or whatever it is. The back side have the directions of how to care for that particular plant. What I want to have you do is take this and we're going to make our own little seed packet. If you fold it lengthwise like this, and I know we don't have scissors, but we're going to do it the old school. You can even lick this side if you want, but you don't have to. And then I just fold it both ways. So it's super, and then use my thumbnail to crease it. Then you can easily tear it pretty smoothly without your scissors. So I'm just going to cut it in half this way. And you can put this aside. And so what I do then, once you have that, if you cut, you've cut it in half, is I fold it, but not all the way to the edge. I leave a little bit. I don't know if you can see it right here. I leave a little bit at the top because you have to fold the flap down. So I fold this. If you wanted to, and we have some glue sticks, you very lightly put a little bit of glue just on the edge, but not all the way to the top, just all the way to the edge of the short side. So it glues as a pocket. Do you know what I'm saying? So, okay. So if you wanted to, pull it all the way off. Yeah, there you go. And so, okay. So we fold it. So there's a little bit of a flap on the top, just a little bit of a flap right on the top, just like that. If you wanted to make the envelope like legit as an envelope, which I totally encourage y'all to do, you would just put a little bit of the glue on the edge of the short half, just a little bit on both edges. So when you put it back up, it glues on lengthwise this way, so you have a bit of a pocket. And then you can fold this up, and then you would have your little envelope, just like on the back of the seed packet, how they have a little bit of an envelope. I personally like to cut or fold slightly because I just like to on the edges, so the edges go down a bit, but just because I like getting it a little bit fancy, that's all. But you don't have to do that. Okay. So once you have that, you can go ahead and glue it later if you wish. But once you have it folded, on the side that does not have the flap, what I would like for you to do is draw any sort of a plant or flower that you feel represents you, and you can even make one up if you like, and then write the name of it on the front. It doesn't matter if you know how to draw. What I always say with the expressive arts is that it's the process of making the art that's important, not the product. The end result and how the end result looks does not matter at all. As a matter of fact, I'm a therapist, not an artist. And I say to everybody all the time, there is a reason why I'm not an artist. I have zero talent. So it's about doing the process of the artwork that's really important. It's what you get out of it. It doesn't matter exactly how it looks. As a matter of fact, when I'm working with clients who are artists, who are really good in an art form, I oftentimes will pick an art medium that they are not good at. If I have a painter in my office, I am probably not going to have them paint because they're going to be so focused on how that painting is going to look like, the form and the matter, that they're not going to pay much attention to what I'm asking them to do and expressing themselves. So if you're a little unsure, anything that you want, it could be a flower, it could be a chili plant, it could be a tree, it could be a vegetable, a fruit. It could be a total made up plant. Anytime I do this for myself, I like to make up my own plant. And then you also write the name of your plant up at the top. So any way that you want to make it look, however you want to express that. So while you're doing that, what do you guys do to relax? How do you take care of yourselves? Bubble baths. I love that. I approve of this message. So, hot tub, a good book, a little glass of wine. Yes, oh, to enjoy a piece of fruit mindfully. Yes, even a piece of dark chocolate. I have little pieces of dark chocolate in my office as well. And eating it mindfully, can you explain a little bit about eating mindfully? What does that mean?
John, can you explain that?
I can explain that. Thank you. I used to hate oranges because it's so much work. having to dig into the peel, and usually I break a nail and
It's all over your hands.
all the stringy stuff all over it. But then I started, after getting the little one down for bed, it'd be quiet, and I just put in some relaxing music in my earbuds, and I'll take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just peeling that orange, just opening it up, and then splitting each little segment out and just savoring the flavor.
And it's much nicer.
It is.
Much nicer.
It is, and I love oranges now.
Yes. And there's something about orange oil that's sort of invigorating. Yeah, it lifts you up.
And sometimes it shoots me in the eye.
That sounds fun.
But you get to smell it and see it and taste it, hear it.
All of it. You totally pay attention to everything your senses are taking in. That's just the whole key of mindfulness.
I was just going to comment that there is evidence for orange essential oils in particular for boosting mood and improving recovery for injuries. My personal work is a lot with essential oils for my small business. So I always try to find the medical applications because I don't care as much what the hippies are like, oh, I feel better. And I'm like, great, but what does the science say? And
yes.
You might literally be boosting your mood by mindfully consuming an orange and just really experiencing it. And that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. And it's a good thing. And it's so simple and it works. And we are seeing with research that mindfulness really is effective, that we're seeing the evidence that it works. We tend to forget about the stuff that seems so simple, even just taking a few deep breaths. And we've gotten so used to just taking pills to help us feel a little bit better. So when do you all, maybe I should rephrase this question. How are you all able to incorporate a little bit of self-care during your day? What do you do during your work day? Do any of y'all do anything to just help moments? Walk to the refrigerator. Maybe so. I heard that.
I like looking. Well, I used to be in an office where I had a window that I could look out of and just do a little bit of mindfulness and look at the trees and people walking. Just take 5 minutes to do it. But then I moved to an office that did not have a window. But I read somewhere that you can actually trick your mind into thinking you're seeing greenery by just having green, like fake plants around you. And so now I have just little leaf stickers on my walls, and every now and then I'll just look at my leaf stickers and I feel good about them. They work.
I need to do that because I had the big windows and now I don't. I was actually thinking along those lines, Dr. Sharma, I was going to make a piece of wall art. I know I said I have no talent. I really don't. That's the only thing holding me back, of something that looks like a window and then having a print behind it of some sort of a nice scenery so I can think that I'm looking out of a window or thinking about, but your idea is so much simpler and easier to do if I just got leaf decals.
I actually also got a painting of some trees that remind me of a forest in Tennessee that I visited a few years ago. And so every time I look at that, it's kind of like a window into that memory of this beautiful forest and sunbathing.
Oh, nice. Forest bathing. I've never heard that term before. Forest bathing. Oh.
I have a couple of things like stretch breaks.
Yes, even just getting up for a second and just like bending over so that you can like feel the stretch in your back or bending backwards.
When I'm in the office, we have a whole health and wellness thing. We have a trainer come and do stretch breaks and walking path and stuff like that. And then when I'm working at home, it's my puppies. But in my office, I have 2 pictures of different waterfalls. And for me, those are very relaxing.
Oh, I love waterfalls. That sounds very relaxing. So let me move a little bit over here. And I want to move to the back side. I know y'all have not all finished your picture of the front side, but have you all gotten an idea of how you would like for your plant or your flower or whatever to look like? Okay. Okay, so if you flip it to the back side, on the back side of every seed packet are the directions. So you're going to have some stuff like maybe pictures that show how you're supposed to be planting it, perhaps even the part of the country that you're supposed to be planting it. I say for myself, only temperate zones, not too cold, not too hot at all. 70 to 80, period. Which for me, living in the Rio Grande Valley, where it's like, it is hotter than the, what's that desert in Mojave Desert? Is hotter than Mojave Desert even at night. That's where I live. Oh my God. But in my seed packet, that's what I want. So that's what I put. You have other directions about what you need in order to take care of yourself. Sometimes we talk about how often to water it. We talk about fertilizer for your plants. My fertilizers, I need some tacos periodically. Just throw them my direction and I'm happy. Maybe a glass of wine too, once in a while. But I would like for you all to think about what you need for you to thrive. What do you think is important for you in order to feel like you're thriving? And put those in directions back there. If you were to give this seed packet to somebody and tell them you need to try to grow this the seeds in here, what would they need to know in order to be successful? How do they take care of you or your seeds? Okay. Is this hard? That part hard? Or are you, some of y'all, it's not that hard. You're like, I know exactly what I need. For others, maybe it's a little bit harder. You haven't thought about it as much. Or it's like, what do I need in order to feel a little bit better about me? But that's what it's good then that you're thinking about it now. And remember, you can always go back and add to some of these things a little bit later. So now that you have an idea of what this is, I'm going to go back a little bit to a couple of the ethical dilemmas while you're working on this. Y'all have an idea of what I need for you to do, right? With the pictures, you don't need to keep this up. Okay. Okay, so I have a couple of ethical dilemmas related to self-care. So let's say you work with Benjamin. Benjamin, he's full-time as a rehab counselor, has been posting on social media about his personal problems regarding his relationship that involve accusations that his partner has been physically and emotionally abusive. He also regularly posts late at night between midnight and 2 a.m. and he complains about work. He states he's been drinking. He's asked on social media for legal advice regarding his romantic relationships. His posts are sometimes public, including GoFundMe's, and his friends list include colleagues. You see that he's also just posted a GoFundMe for financial assistance for living expenses. Is this a self-care issue? I almost feel like that's a rhetorical question. You are laughing at me. You hear it, you can see this. So we've been talking about self-care for us, but we're all colleagues, we're all a team. So if you have a coworker and you're the colleague on social media, what would you be thinking if this is a situation that you're aware of? It's almost like you're not sure this is a real thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Y'all are too busy thinking about yourselves. Good, good. I'm so glad. You're like, I don't care about Benjamin. I want to focus on myself right now.
I would call up the guy and say, let's go out for a beer. I want to talk to you, man. And then say, and bring your bike too. And we go out to, I know a good place to go for a ride. And just listen. And that's probably the best thing to do.
I love that. I love that. That's taking care of your coworker for sure. You know, calling him up, asking him to talk and sitting him down and having that conversation, that is so important. somebody needs to step in. So many times we might be seeing things like this on social media. We see signs in the office and nobody wants to get involved or say something. And I think it's a great idea. Oh, sure.
This feels a lot like the conversation you were having earlier about the CRC ethical mandates, and that in some situations we should be pulling our coworkers aside or our peers aside and being like, hey, you're not performing at your best. We need to work on, and you're potentially putting other people's success in danger, particularly your clients. So if you're not serving your clients best, maybe you do need to take time away from work
Yes.
in a way that supports you, that doesn't leave you without money, because obviously he's needing financial assistance. So it's not like we want to be like, oh, step away from your job, don't work, because that might make him more stressed about
Mhm.
money. But we also shouldn't be seeing a public breakdown on the internet when we should have our own support resources for each other.
Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that too, and for saying that. The thing as well with social media is it says that, there's many colleagues on it, but some of the stuff is public, and even the GoFundMe stuff is public as well. Our clients stalk us on social media. They stalk us. Um, many of my clients have over the years tried to find information about me even before they show up to my office. And so I've got to be really careful about what I put on social media or what's available public, or even try to hide some of my accounts somehow. But they will find this. And if you're posting some things on social media, that you got to kind of consider, what would a client think if they tried to Google stalk me and then they saw some GoFundMe, for example, about blank? Some things can be acceptable. Others, you've got to really kind of wonder and question how it might come across. Would clients lose confidence in your abilities as well? Or what would they might think? I mean, we have to live our own lives as well, but we've got to be a little bit cautious about how it may come across. But to go back to the point that you were making, we absolutely do have to care for ourselves, and we should tell our colleagues it is okay. And we tell ourselves, counselors should seek counseling periodically. That is fine. It is actually healthy for us. How can we expect somebody to come to one of us and to talk about certain issues that are going on in their lives, or help them through a process or a point in their lives, when we ourselves are unwilling to do that too? We should be modeling this in some way and kind of normalizing this reaction. And also, we shouldn't have to be doing it by ourselves. So if we're finding that we're struggling, or we should be seeking help also. And if you find that one of your colleagues is struggling, you should be encouraging them to seek help too, so that they can continue to do well. The other one is, Fernanda is a seasoned case manager in an underserved area of the US. She often sees clients from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with few breaks in between client meetings. Her caseload is always full. Recently, she's been having marital difficulties with her mother, not with her mother. Oh my gosh. What kind of a family is that? And her mother, with whom she's very close, has recently died. At one session, while a client was explaining the situational triggers to her depressive symptoms, Fernanda snapped, "That's a problem? You think you've got a problem? I've got problems." Okay, so both of these case studies really actually came from real people. I kid you not. So it happens. Sometimes you get so overwhelmed. This has gone a little bit too far, where she's so overwhelmed with all of her life problems that she's snapping at her clients. But if it's getting to this point, that's a huge sign as well that you're not taking care of yourself. Now you've got to take a step back and do so. As you would imagine, not really wanting to, a client not wanting to continue with you, no matter how good of a counselor you're supposed to be. So important to monitor ourselves and be honest about how we are, what we're experiencing, where we're at, and how competent we are at that time. We've got to watch out for not only ourselves, but we watch out for our colleagues. Now, self-care, and this is another quote I really love, which I'm going to point out or repeat. Self-care is never a selfish act. It's simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer to others. I think I have additional gifts. But I still love this quote about how we're caring for us and ourselves. So I want to go back here and talk a bit about how supervisors can help us. So I don't know if any of you all are supervisors. Some of you all are. Okay. These are some tips that I've gathered about how supervisors or managers might be able to help your staff feel a little bit better and to manage their own stresses. I think a lot can happen on the top down. If we ourselves as supervisors and managers value self-care and recognize how important it is to care for oneself, the more likely our employees are going to be able and feel like they have permission to take care of themselves. The more likely, if they're struggling, they may come to you and ask for assistance, or come to you and confide in you without thinking that somehow you're going to think that they're not capable of doing their jobs, or there's something wrong with them, or they're not a good employee. So even just the attitude yourselves of being able to impart to them that you care about their well-being is important. A really easy way of doing it is just even asking them, hey, how are you doing? I noticed you had a really tough session just now, or I just wanted to check in with you to see if you were okay. Even that by itself goes a long way. Even if they say, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. And it's like, okay, well, just checking, making sure. If you see that you've got an employee who's been getting a little bit too many in a row of clients who have more serious issues or heavier issues, you may want to try to spread the love then about the next person who comes in, or be a little bit cautious about, okay, let's give a few to some other folks because this one's got a really heavy load right now in terms of the client issues. So other ones may or may not be possible depending on where you're working at, but these are just a variety of them. Mental health days and allowing people to take mental health days can be kind of a touchy subject about that. But I think if somebody's really overloaded and you can see and it's affecting themselves personally, taking a day just to unwind, just to get out of work and collect themselves might not be a bad thing. What we found is that many employees don't take time off to take care of themselves. They overload themselves. And how that ends up translating is that they end up with more sick days, actually. Many employers do not want their employees to take time off until they're like physically sick. But mental health days can actually prevent that and prevent additional sick days from being taken. So, you know, it might not be a bad thing if your employees are taking some time off here or there just to unwind and recuperate. So health insurance, adequate health insurance, access to mental health treatments can be very, very helpful. Even encouraging them to get counseling, you know, or to say, I noticed you've been having a really hard time. You know, I think it would be a really good idea if you just talk to somebody, maybe through employee assistance program or something. Just talk to them, just go one time, see how it is, but take care of you. And that's important because we often tell folks, you know, it's you got to get things out and outside of yourself and off of your chest and feel heard and listened to. We know with our clients that helps them. It works. That's why they come and they see us and they work through their stuff. We can do the same sort of things. Our employees can do the same sort of things. The other thing is I think it's important for supervisors and managers to encourage little breaks here and there. You know, encourage them. You haven't taken your lunch yet. You need to go, you know, take a bit of a break. No, I can't. I got to really write these notes. You know, I appreciate that, but take a walk around the block or something, just real quick, and then come back. It'll be there. And that way you will encourage them to step away from their desk, because otherwise by the end of the day, they are going to be exhausted and tired. And so again, just the small, minute breaks that you as the employer encourages them to do can really be helpful. The other one I wanted to point out at the bottom is don't say or do things that you feel would stigmatize staff who are struggling with vicarious trauma or stress or trauma related issues. And what that just means is saying things even as a joke that can come across as insensitive. So you might want to just be cautious about the words that you're using, or minimizing what somebody might be going through, or minimizing the pain, or minimizing how difficult it could be to work with somebody who's experienced a great hardship. And for you yourself to stay positive and praise your employees as much as possible. You know, sometimes it's so easy to point out what you want to get fixed that you forget to tell them what you love about the work that they're doing, but praising them for their efforts. And it truly does go a long way. We all had managers who all they seem to tell you is what you're not doing right. We've all worked for, I think most of us have worked for somebody at some point in our lives who is only able to tell us what we're not doing right. How does that affect you all? Yeah, just really badly. It doesn't ever come out well. You feel on edge. You're constantly wondering when the next criticism is coming. You don't feel enthused about the work anymore. You don't feel positive. And if you just have some praise periodically, you rejuvenate yourself. You get a little bit more positive. You want to do the work. You know, I were talking in the very beginning about compassion fatigue. What offsets compassion fatigue and prevents it is compassion satisfaction. The more we are satisfied with our job, the happier we are with our job, the less likely we're going to get that fatigue, regardless of how much stress that job gives us. Regardless of how heavy our caseload is, the more satisfied we are, it prevents the fatigue. It helps offset the burnout. And if we have a supervisory role, a managerial role, we really can do wonders for our staff just by ensuring that periodically we praise them, we give them a pat on the back for the work that we're doing, and let them know we get it. You know, you've got a tough job. Thanks for all of your efforts. You know, you kind of just feel like, okay, you know, I feel in a supportive environment, and that's important. So what I want to do right now, we have about 15 minutes. I want to go back just a bit. Have you all been able to write at least a couple of self-care stuff down, even though I've been talking an awful lot while you've been trying to do it, so you're having to do two things at once? Okay. Is there anybody here who'd like to share a little bit about what their flower is and what they wrote in their self-care? Yes. We'd love to see it. If you can show the pic, do you have a picture?
I'm not a good
Neither.
supposed to be a willow tree.
Oh, I love that.
And the
That's
reason
one of
it's a
my favorite
willow tree, it's just something I've always kept in mind. I've done martial arts, but the willow tree is to go with the moments. It's like if you're an oak tree, to be hard, you know, you get snow, let's say on the branch, eventually it breaks. With the willow tree, the snow will just fall off. Or the wind goes and blows it, it can break the oak tree.
Yes.
But the willow tree, when it's all the storm is done, you end up back where you're supposed to be. And that's kind of sometimes maybe on a daily or in life. And so you may go through the storm or in those moments, but you end up back where you're supposed to. So I have that. So you plant yourself in an open area, which is kind of like being at peace when you're in those moments. And watering, I think, is actually taking that time to be alone. And then trimming. Always remember to do this.
Nice.
So that's what I have.
And you
here.
can read trimming even as cutting off the stuff that no longer applies to you anymore, the toxicity. If you see that something's not working for you anymore, periodically trim that out.
Well, I realize that I don't do any of this anymore. I actually had an episode and I'm thinking it was because of overwork. I ended up with transient global amnesia for like 10 hours and I don't recall anything. And I was in Hawaii, but the planning of going with the family and taking everyone still put me in that pressure of doing all the planning. So I was there.
Yes.
So I don't remember. I woke up in ER and then had all these tests. I'm saying it was just overwork.
Yeah, that's a
And-
huge
yeah.
reminder for you. It's like
Yeah.
a slap in the face that you needed to take care of yourself again.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it took me a while because they wouldn't let me drive and I had minimal work that I could do on the computer from home. So my wife was driving Miss Daisy all over, but there was times where I was shutting down and I had trouble shutting down. And I really had to teach myself it's okay. And I would try and, I'd take a nap. The first time I actually did take a nap for 3.5 hours. And I woke up with spit all over and not ashamed to say, I was just so out of it. I finally had said, you know what, this is what they're talking about. Take some time and be alone. So I had to retrain myself. And even though I was taking time on doing what I thought was taking time away, but with family, I wasn't taking time alone
Yeah.
to do these things. And so when you said that earlier, I thought, wow, I mean, so I wanted to share it because it's important. You're planning and going to go take time, but maybe you're going with family or friends, but you're still busy.
Yes.
Like I just got a text. Do you want to go to Dallas Cowboy game tomorrow? No, I don't want to do anything tomorrow. But my family's here, my wife, and I'm just like, they want to do something. And sometimes I feel like Linus, the blanket from Charlie Brown. Those of you who remember Charlie Brown, I'm the blanket when I'm going on vacation. So I need to take the time to just do nothing sometimes.
Yes.
And so be
Absolutely.
aware of that when you're planning to go and take that time. You really have to do something you enjoy. If it's reading, I just caught myself not reading. I love to read. And Sunday I said I was going to read, but I ended up doing some work. That's reading, but not
the
reading
you
something
want.
to get
That's
your
not the
mind off,
reading
right?
for pleasure.
So I hope that helps some of you because, I just experienced all of this. And thank you for this.
Thank you for sharing all
I'm
of
glad
that.
I was led here.
Right. And it's so important to take care of ourselves, and we've got to have our periodic reminders. And you're absolutely right. It is hard to shut down from work. We think about it a lot. How many of y'all have been doing work while you're here at this conference? Thank you. Thank you. And it's hard to take a step away. And, sometimes, we're all counselors or OTs. We help other individuals. And I remember very recently having to remind myself to take care of myself because I'm with a client talking about their stress level and them feeling overwhelmed. And I'm working with them on coming up with strategies that might work for them. They're feeling more positive about their strategy to leave. And the first thing I think about, I'm such a hypocrite. Help me. I'm so good at telling them what to do, and I need the reminders myself, and that is perfectly okay. Sometimes we need those reminders. So thank you for sharing it. Anybody else wanted to share theirs? Yes, sir. Oh, wait, what?
I drew a tulip in the mountains.
Oh, I love that in the mountains. Nice.
And I got a little worm and a ladybug in there, some birds flying. But the instructions were because I became like that, the Caddyshack, that guy that was trying to kill those gophers.
Yeah.
That's how I was this year. Never before. All these critters were driving me nuts. And so anyway, I placed bulbs in a cage to protect them from critters. Water every day, fertilize in the fall, late spring, cut off the flowers. Enjoy your flowers for a brilliant color. Spray critter repellent on the flowers and prevent them from eating the flowers.
So if you can only just keep the critters away from you, you will bloom. I
Yeah, I
love
became
that.
a killer. I'm killing them all. I'm telling you.
Oh, no, you just have to put the cage around. That's all.
I got the cage, but those what they did is I had about $400 of flowers. They ate $300 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I felt just like that guy going crazy.
Oh, man.
Caddyshack.
You know what this reminds me of? When I had a much bigger yard and a little bit more time to actually full on garden, Yeah, to garden. I had a bunch of rabbits come in and start taking the stuff. And at first, it was aggravating to me to know. And I was like, oh, all my time and my effort. And you know what I ended up doing? I said, screw this. And I bought all of these vegetables that I knew that they would like. And I was like, have a way, have a way. And I figured to myself, I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to eat all of them. I'm just gonna let the rabbits do their thing. And so periodically I poked my head out to see if I could see my new rabbit friends. And I had to change my expectation of that stupid little plot of land that I only did for one season. But that's what it reminded me of. I don't know how I think though about gophers. I might be doing the same thing though.
That's good. It's a big fat thing.
Oh, it's one gopher.
Oh, no, it was, well, I had 2 raccoons, a couple skunks, the squirrels and chipmunk. I mean, I used to like chipmunk. Chipmunks are cute. Not anymore. They were coming into my house. I despised them. And the squirrels are just as bad. They're going around my windows. It's just like, that's a nightmare. I have all these bird feeders, so I can see the birds in the morning while I'm eating my Wheaties and look at them. And now I don't like some of the birds because the sparrows are all they're all fighting against each other.
Oh
I
my
only like the
gosh.
chickadees.
It's a good thing we can laugh at it though right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I hope that your flowers might still be able to bloom, at least some of them. Yes.
And I got all these spray things to push them away so they don't like dead blood. I mean, blood.
Oh, maybe not. Have any of you all posted anything in terms of where you would like to even live in the all of the world of the United States? Where you should be planted? Full sun. You want the sun. No partial shade. Full sun. That's so specific. That is so specific. You were gonna say? We need 2 of you all. That was a bad joke.
I put more like self-care stuff down on mine. So I didn't talk necessarily about where I want to live or like weather, but it's kind of related.
What did you
But
put down?
I did a cactus, mostly because I feel like I'm prickly on the outside, but I'm full of water on the inside. You also did a cat. Wow, we're
Oh,
so alike.
nice.
But I said leave to own devices unless that's been too long. Then provide with tea and chocolate. Water monthly with whiskey. Provide
That's
2
pretty
hours
specific, too.
weekly to allow nail color change. Keep blanket and soft clothing on hand in case temperature changes. Take household chores and tasks off plate occasionally, and love frequently.
Oh, love that. Love it. Thank you. Very nice. Yes. Yes, I love that. Anybody else? We have a couple more minutes. Anybody else wanted to share what they had put for themselves? Yes, ma'am.
I drew a Red River birch.
A Red River birch.
I drew Red River birch mainly because I have one in the front yard and it kind of encompasses my swing in a big hug. And when
Nice.
I'm not in the hot tub, I'm on the swing. And then I just drew stuff on the back that, like hugs, my dog, stove, because I like to cook, I like to read, friends. And just as I was finishing that, my husband texted me 2 pictures of my dogs.
Oh, how nice. I love that. I love that you had put them there, including your dogs in that. Even just petting our pets for just a few moments, it really does lower our blood pressure. It helps us, except my husband's dog. Appropriately named Car Bomb, as drives me up the wall because he's such full of energy and I'm actually kind of more of a cat person. So my dogs have to act like cats and this one does not. Yes.
Oh, I'll go next. So mine has a little rose or a semblance of a rose because I kind of want to have a rosy outlook on this. It's very focused on my day-to-day needs. So this seed packet needs food, at least 3 meals plus snacks daily. It needs coffee, 1 cup daily. It needs sleeps at least 8 hours daily. It needs friends, but just once a weekend only. Cannot handle too much socialization. Need puppy love morning and night because I do love my dogs, as you already know. It needs to be kept cozy in the winter, but cool in the summertime. And needs frequent travel, a minimum of 2 every year, and then plenty of wine as needed.
Thank you. So you really see how each of you all, if you even if you share with your neighbors, some of your self-care stuff is a little bit different from the rest of everybody's is a little bit different. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. Yes? Please.
You got a picture of the dogs? I said I want to go to the Cowboy game. I got a picture of seats they want to buy at the Cowboy.
You know, it's like we're manifesting the self-care coming into our telephones. Yes, it's like we're having those reminders come in. That's how powerful this is. Someone just shared a picture of food with you too. Now I'm interested to see what's in my phone. But anyway, I hope if anything that you all take out of this is how important it is that we have to take care of ourselves and each other as colleagues. You know, watch out for your coworkers and your friends who work with you. Watch out for yourselves. We need really good people to stay in this profession, people who are here because they want to be here. They care about helping others. And so the best way of doing that is just by implementing a little bit of self-care even into our days and having some of those reminders. I know that our jobs are really, really tough, and I appreciate everything that you all do. And I know each of us appreciates what everybody else is doing as well. So thank you for joining me for this presentation. I know it's been a very, very long week. I've enjoyed meeting some of y'all. I mean, enjoyed meeting all of y'all, actually. That sounded awfully rude. It's just for some of you, I've talked to you. If you would like to take some of this stuff home with you all, you're welcome to do so. Actually, that way I don't have to pack it back up, but you're welcome to take some of this back with you all. And maybe hopefully the seed packets will be a bit of a reminder. One of the things that I add for my clients often is to have them make little tiny seeds, and then they put the qualities that they see of themselves on them. So I ask for at least like maybe 3. If they can have 5, that's awesome. So qualities, positive qualities that they have for themselves, whatever that they might be proud of, to put them on, write them on the little seeds and put them in the packets themselves as an extra little oomph of a reminder. So anyway, thank you so much for coming here